Hello everyone, welcome to chapter 6. In this video we're going to be setting up a shot of this building using photographic methods. So this will be our viewport here. What we want to do is press F6 and now you'll see our camera shows up in the other viewports, and we're going to use this to adjust our camera angle. So you can see when we move the camera around here, it's able to adjust our viewport. And we can move the camera using the center point here. So generally we want to set the camera up to be a low angle, approximately 160 centimeters above the ground, or anywhere in that kind of angle. So we're going to use our side views here to set up the shot. So we're wanting to look at this back wall here with the corner. And we can adjust the camera using these front points to adjust the rotation. And we can also set the lens length. But we want to keep it at about 50. So once we set up our shot, you'll notice that some of the lines are now not parallel with the camera. To fix this, we go into Tools, and you click Guess Lens Shift, and we go into our Asset Editor. You'll see on our vertical lens tilt under the Effects tab, it will set the lens vertical tilt. So now you can see all of our lines are now parallel on our scene. And so now we just want to perfect our shot to get the exact angle that we want. We want our stairs to be slightly offset of the center of the camera. It's about there, looks good. Now we can save our view. And now we want to set up our scene parameters. So we're going to open our Advanced tab here and go to Advanced Camera Parameters, and we'll set our film sensitivity to 100 and our shutter speed to 200. So we'll set our render output to portrait and put the width at about, we want 1080 wide and 1350 tall, but you can choose these if you want a larger image. So let's take a look at our shot. And here it is at the moment. So we're going to go ahead and add our sun and sky. We've done this in the previous tutorials, so we'll just do the same thing. So turn our sun on. And we can set custom parameters here. Another way, if you want to work in your viewport, we can go ahead and turn on Safe Frame, which is under the render output. And now this is where you can see your frame that the camera will be rendering. And we can change this to a V-Ray interactive view. So now we can see our final image. And this allows us to adjust some of the sun parameters as we're working on it. And go ahead and turn the safe frame off. You can also type in sun, and the sun tab will pop up here. So we can adjust our angles. If you want to set the sun to be in a certain place in the world, or your render is taking place at a certain location, there's anywhere in the world you can choose from. So say we've got a render in Australia, this will set the sun to be the true position in the country at the time. So if you want to set it for 5 PM in Australia, this is what it will look like. But for this case, we're going to be using manual control. And we can use the V-Ray tab for this. So we want to set our scene to be a daytime. We want the shadows to create kind of a contrast. So we'll set our sun on the left side, because one thing you don't want is the sun behind it. For example, where it is now, so it won't give you a very contrasting image. So we set the sun to give us some shadows. This will create a lot of depth and diversity into our image. The ground is a bit overexposed, but this can be fixed using our exposure tools that we used in our previous tutorials, or we can set the material on the ground to give us a less overexposed ground. So say you're setting up a nighttime or evening render, it gives us a very orange tint to it. This can be fixed using the white balance. Say we don't want as much yellow on the camera, we set the white balance to be yellow, and now you can see this gives us a much colder image. But for this case, we're not doing a sunset render, so we'll increase it slightly. There you go, so now you see we got a nice contrast in between the spaces. So if the sun seems to be too intense and the shadows are very sharp, you can go ahead and increase the size multiplier, and this will soften the shadows to give us a more smoother finish. For example, if the sun is passing through some clouds, the shadow will be a much softer. But for this, we want to set it to about 5. We still want to keep some of the contrast in the shadows. The intensity multiplier will just decrease the exposure of the sun a little bit. You can see it is very overexposed on certain parts of the image, but this can be changed using the ground texture, as this white texture is very reflective. So once we're happy with where our sun is, we want to go ahead, type in sun, and you can save this position of the sun. So if you want to set up another render with the sun in this angle, we can go ahead and click save. And there you go. So now we can make adjustments, and if you want to come back to this certain angle of the sun, you can just click import and it will load in the current sun. So now we're going to go ahead and put in our V-Ray sky. So there's our sky. We just decrease a little bit of the intensity. Same with the sun again. And there's our scene set up there. So now you can see our shot is looking very plain. In the next tutorial we'll be adding materials, but as you can see on the left side, there's not much going on. It's a bit of a blank space. So we can go ahead and using the Chaos Cosmos that comes with V-Ray Next, we'll load in a tree to add some contrast to the scene. So you want to load in a tree and place it down. This one might be a bit too tall, so we'll look for a smaller one. In this case, it might help to choose a skinnier tree where the leaves are more closer to the trunk, so you want to see a bit more of the branches and the tree to fill up not just the top part of the screen, but also some of the middle. So we'll try a different one. So this looks much better. So we're just going to adjust this until it's in our shot there. And now, as you can see on the ground, it's looking very plain. So what we're going to do is do the same thing, look for some furniture to place on the ground. Preferably some outdoor furniture. And so now we can go ahead and reposition this until it fills up our shot. I generally don't want anything that's not the center of attention to be directly in the center of the camera. So we'll position these chairs slightly offset to the camera. And we'll go ahead and load on the table. And we can load in some assets to place on top of the table. So this is where Chaos Cosmos comes in very helpful. I can simply just load on assets to use. We want to make sure our objects are positioned correctly. There you go, so there's our scene. So that's how we set up the basic scene for this. In the next tutorial we're going to be adding the materials to the surroundings and add a bit of depth to it. So that's all for this video.